I feel like Howard the Duck.
Okay, Ali, go for it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Hamdoun. I currently serve as your Student Body Vice President alongside with President Austin Moore, and he could not be able to attend tonight. I would like to welcome you all from UNCG Student Government Association. Over the course of the summer, we've been very busy. Student government's been working, we're doing a lot of work. Just to share some of the things we've been working towards and the accomplishments we've been having, we had an emergency meeting about a month and a half ago, and we discussed the current situation that was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, the discriminatory comments, and the pandemic that's been going around. And we also spoke about potential legislation for the upcoming session. SGA has several committees, and one of them, namely, is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and they have created a task force alongside the Faculty Senate, and they have been hardworking at tackling the improvement of inclusivity on our campus, for we are the most diverse PWI in the UNC system. Austin and I have also been hard at work to try to organize the upcoming semester and session, for we have to change the way that our initial plans were going to be to better suit the current pandemic whilst maintaining a successful session. As for tonight's town hall, we encourage all you students and parents to continue submitting your questions along with the same form you did previously. And this can be found on the YouTube page. Dr. Kathy Akins, the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, will be serving as the moderator for tonight. And now I'll be handing it over to our wonderful Chancellor, Chancellor Gilliam, who will offer a few remarks before taking your questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ali. I want to highlight the great work that SGA has been doing to advocate for students and to bring student concerns to the administration and for keeping our student body informed. As you can see, I'm wearing a Spartan face covering, and we'll be talking about those. I do want to say that obviously I'm in my office, and so I'm going to take it off. I'm the only one in here. But I want to thank you all for joining us in our returning students town hall. We have had a number of town halls. This is the third student town hall we've had in the last 5 days. And as Ollie mentioned, Dr. Aiken and I have had a series of productive conversations with student leaders, and recently last month. And clearly we value students' input and want to be very sensitive to their concerns. I know a lot of you, all of you really, have a lot of questions about the fall, and I want to get to those, but let me make some general remarks about where we are as a university. This is my 38th year as either a professor or an administrator, and I'll be starting my 6th year as Chancellor of UNC Greensboro. Obviously, I was in graduate school and undergraduate school before that, and for a large part of my life, I was raised on a college campus, and in fact, my parents had me when they were in college. So I know that the beginning of the academic year is always an exciting time, a time of hope and optimism. It's a chance for our returning students to reconnect with their friends and their professors and the staff, and they also are typically excited about coming back and getting in the Greensboro community. For all of us who work here, it's always the best time of year, and in fact, I'm disappointed that we won't have a lot of the activities that we typically have to greet the students. My favorite is move in, and I help students move in. I think this year, if the heat continues, I'll be passing out popsicles and ice cream. And so we still want to make it celebratory. But make no mistake, things are tough right now. Things are uncertain, they're even scary. But it's our goal, as it always is, to bring positive feelings associated with the beginning of a new school year. That's why we're here, that's why you're here. And believe me, I understand the difficulties we are all facing right now, whether it is as a campus or for the students and their families in their communities where they live. And I've told the student groups, and actually all the groups I've met with, that the COVID-19 environment event really is something that we'll all remember for the rest of our lives. For our students, you'll always remember this time, the fall of 2020 and the summer of 2020. I know a lot of us are wishing 2020 would end. Doesn't seem to have been a good year. But I just can't stress enough how significant this event is and how dynamic the current environment is. While we're dealing with the COVID virus, we're also dealing with questions of racial equity around the country and here at UNCG, and Ollie mentioned some of it. I know some of you read my campus note, so I don't want to reiterate that here, but I'm really proud of our students who have been taking action, and that action can take any number of forms, whether it's starting a dialogue with family members or friends, creating art as a form of discourse, posting resources on social media, and voting. I've worked on racial equity for a large part of my career as an academic, and I can tell you now, this institution will respond and has always responded. And given the diversity of our student body, and by diversity, I mean all kinds of diversity, not just racial, but ethnic, religious, sexual orientation, urban, rural, go down the list. It's a really tumultuous time, but our goal is to keep you as safe as we can. And I spend a lot of sleepless nights, as do the folks you'll meet on this call, planning and worrying about the best ways to keep you safe. And it's also personal for me. I have a college-age son who lives 3,000 miles away. And as a parent, I understand the concern. I worry about my son constantly. But we're going to do all that we can to take care of our students and to support them. Yesterday, we sent to all families and students a return to campus guide. In it, you'll find the current state of our plans, our protocols, and our approach to starting this semester safely. As you know, however, things can change quickly, and I urge you to view the document as an evolving set of guidelines. It is not meant to be static, but it will evolve as conditions change. As I've said, and I want to continue to express, we're dedicated to creating a safe environment and creating a powerful social and academic experience for our students. Today, we'll do all we can to answer the questions many of you have based on what we know today. If COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's that change can and things will change and are likely to change further. And they may do so quickly. It makes it difficult to engage in decision-making under conditions of extreme uncertainty, but we're trying to do our best. The bottom line is we have to work together. You've heard me talk about the concept of shared fate, this idea that what happens to one happens to the other, and nowhere is that more salient than with regard to COVID-19. We have to keep each other safe. We have to keep our campus safe. We have to keep our Greensboro community safe. We have to uphold a set of standards, and we're going to talk about our community standards in this call, and make decisions, each of us, that not only serve our individual needs, but also serve the community. And we have to do that at all times. Now, you saw I started the conversation with a face covering on. We're going to require that on campus, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We know that there's some things that individuals can do, whether it's washing their hands frequently, keeping your distance, making sure that you and your friends are being safe when you're off campus, and for those of you who live off campus, being careful about the choices you make. And together, I think we can get through this. Our goal, though, is to give you the best possible experience we can under the conditions we're experiencing. We're confident we can make that happen, even in the face of the pandemic, but it doesn't happen unless we all work together. And moreover, we have to care about each other. You have to care enough to be responsible. You have to care about something bigger than yourself. And that's true for all of us in our daily lives, and for those of us here that work on campus in our work life. And we'll try to model those behaviors. So I'll stop here and turn it over to Vice Chancellor Aiken, and we can start to answer some of your questions. Before we do that, however, let me tell you who will be on the call and who you'll see on the screen. I've already talked about Kathy Akins, our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Jim Coleman, our brand new Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor, who comes to us from the University of Arkansas, where he was Provost, Julia Jackson-Newsome, who's the Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategy and Policy and has been the point person in our COVID response, Brett Carter, who is our Associate Vice Chancellor and Dean of Students, Andrew Hamilton is Associate Vice Provost for Student Success and Dean of Undergraduate Studies and has been responsible for re-engineering 4,200 class sections. And you'll get a sense as we go through this, the Herculean task that is. Dr. Tracy Mcmillian is our Medical Director at Student Health Services. Maria Anastasio is the Associate Provost for International Programs. Samira Kapishwari is our Associate Vice Chancellor for Facilities. Tim Sloan, who's our Director of Environmental Health and Safety. Tim Johnson, who is our Director of Housing and Residential Life. And Scott Millman, who is our Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus Enterprises. So with all of that by way of introduction, let's get to the meat of the matter. Kathy?
Thank you, Chancellor. Good evening, students, parents, and family members. We appreciate you joining us tonight. I want to give you a sense of the format. We have reviewed the questions that have been submitted up to this point, and I will be posing a few of those to the Chancellor to get us started. And following that, we'll continue to pose questions and respond to some of the things that you're submitting as we're live now. So I think I'm going to start with this first question, Chancellor. There's actually a lot of different questions that have come in from students and families about really two big issues. One about the decision to go online or not, and the other about refunds. So how about if you get us started with those issues?
Well, Kathy, I know these are the two biggest issues for our students and families, and they're the two biggest issues for us as well, or at least among the top ones. And I know that there's stress and uncertainty and fear, but I think it's important for everyone to understand how the decisions are made, who makes them when, and then for us to be clear about what we're doing within the context of this decision-making to provide the best, most robust, safest possible educational experience for our students. So first, let me talk about the structure, the decision-making structure at the University of North Carolina system. As you know, we're 17 separate institutions that make up the system. Each campus reports up to the University of North Carolina System Office. So the first off-campus layer is the System Office, and the System Office reports to a Board of Governors who are appointed by the North Carolina State Legislature. And I know it's a lot of layers, but that is the decision-making structure in the state. Policy decisions about going fully remote, and by the way, on refunds, are made at the system and UNC Board of Governors level. Let me be clear. Decisions about going fully remote, if and when, and on refunds will be made by the system office in conjunction with the UNC Board of Governors. So please understand that. Secondly, let me say something about the mode of instruction. We are opening the campus, and actually opening is the wrong term. The campus has never been closed. This isn't about, it's a false dichotomy to think of this as open or closed. In fact, it's the wrong dimension along which to understand it. It's the mode of instruction and the degree to which we use one mode versus another, face-to-face versus hybrid versus remote. And in doing so, we have to balance the needs and preferences of all the students, not to mention the faculty and staff. And so let me tell you where we're at here. And you'll hear more about this later, we're preparing our classes and pretty much done with it, such that there's appropriate social distancing, enhanced sanitizing, and even less classroom density. About a third of our classes are online, 56% are face-to-face, and 11% are hybrid. And so the system office and the Board of Governors has made the decision to hold face-to-face classes. And when that's not possible, we are either having hybrid forms or we're going remote. Now, let me say something about refunds. And I know this is stressful and it's important. And it's important to families as they budget and plan how they're going to pay for their students to be here at UNCG. We will do whatever we can with whatever resources we have available to help our students and to ease any financial burdens. This is especially true of those most at risk and most vulnerable. And just as we did in the spring, we'll make sure that no UNCG student is left without an option, left without a home. We housed a number of students last spring who, for various reasons, couldn't go home or didn't have a home to go to. So I want to be clear about that. Let me say something about housing and dining refunds, and there's a lot of questions about this, and particularly if students are compelled to leave campus or certain facilities closed due to COVID. I know there's been some confusion on this issue, and we regret our role in any confusion that has been caused. But the UNC system has addressed the overall policy, mainly because there was some conflicting interpretations of their first guidance on this. And I want to read it to you, the system's policy guidelines verbatim. The UNC system issued guidance to all its institutions about the possibility that housing and dining refunds would not be available, particularly without state or federal financial relief. If COVID-19 further impacts students and forces them to leave campuses, and if they have to return to online learning. Now, I know some people have interpreted this as a definitive decision not to issue refunds. That's not true. Issue them under any circumstances. If the system and if the campuses are able to offer financial relief to students, for example, if we have new fiscal federal policy and another stimulus package, as we know, is being considered in Washington right now, we'd certainly do so, and we certainly want to do so. Make no mistake about that. But the current uncertain economic conditions and the health outlooks precludes us from making any definitive decisions or commitments today on future refunds, and we'll provide further information and guidance as we know more. And if we can do it, we will. Another issue that's come up is tuition and fees. And again, I want to read the UNC system policy. They say, quote, as always has been the case, tuition and fees are charged at the beginning of the semester and will remain in place regardless of any changes in instructional format. Tuition and fees directly impact our ability to provide meaningful education programs, experiences, and services, and will not be refunded in the event that instructional format changes for any part of the 2021 academic year, end quote. And these discussions are still ongoing about fees at the system level. And I think their goal is to make a decision that is consistent across all of the schools in the UNC system. But I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about how fees work and about the process. So it's a little tedious, but let me try to get through it. All universities in the system submit the proposed fee structure and dollar amounts first to their campus board of trustees. So there's this other layer. Each campus has its own, what's called a local board of trustees. They have to approve any changes to fees, and then the Board of Governors has to approve what the Board of Trustees approved. And per UNC system policy, the proposals must be informed by student and faculty feedback, and that's the case here, and Vice Chancellor Aiken can talk about the student input in that process. But let me tell you what required fees support. They support programs and services and facilities on campus and online, for which state funds are not available or cannot be used. And just to be clear here, the way policy works in the University of North Carolina system is that state funds have a number of restrictions on them in terms of how we can use them. So the fees are necessary to serve our students while they are here, and they help us protect, maintain our campus even when students aren't here. And in these challenging times, we have to implement a wide range of systems and programs to support students in new ways and ensure when things do return to something more normal, we have something to return to. And let me tell you what fees typically are used to provide. Student government activity, virtual events, counseling and expanded access to mental health counselors and clinical services through telehealth, the Elliott University Center and the Kaplan Center, which have to be maintained. The money goes to campus safety initiatives. We've used a lot of money, and we'll hear more about this, for trainings and workshops for faculty to make online classes more robust. And I just want to say there, in the spring, we had to pivot in 5 days to go fully remote. And faculty had not prepared their courses that way. So it was really quite a significant achievement that they were able to do so. However, we've wanted to now, with some time, the summer and the late spring, where we've been able to think through online education more fully, we have engaged in a series of trainings for faculty and workshops and peer-to-peer learning. And we'll hear more about that in a few minutes. And we use the fees to develop instructional spaces that are appropriately physically distanced. And we may hear more about this, classrooms are now outfitted with new technology, what's called capture technology, specifically designed for online learning. UNCG exists to provide education to our students. The goal is for you to graduate and propel you into a meaningful lives with careers and social mobility. Put it in another way, when any of these sources of funding are cut, reduced, or lost, there are real and significant impacts to our ability to deliver on our mission of access, excellence, and impact, our ability to provide services for students. And in the event that these funds are really cut, facilities may close, academic programs may be canceled, and some people, in fact, many people may lose their jobs. This is sobering, I get it, and believe me, I live with this every day, and it keeps me awake at night, but it's real. It's the real account of where we are in a very highly complex and highly fluid situation. We know that this is a key issue for families. It's extremely stressful, we know that. And by the way, we are sharing your feedback with the system. We've been talking to our incoming president of the UNC system, Peter Hans, who had been the president of the North Carolina Community College system, and he's very aware that people are concerned about this. The Board of Governors meets Wednesday and Thursday. I assume there will be much discussion among their meetings, and we're going to make sure we communicate with you if there are any changes to existing system policy. Kathy or anyone else, do you want to add to that?
I was just going to add, you mentioned about student input in the fees process itself. There is a committee that actually is co-chaired by the student government vice president and the senior vice provost, and they're the committee that hears the proposals for any potential fee increases on an annual basis. And so students, both undergraduate and graduate, are part of that process. All right, I think we can move on to the next question. Before we do that, though, I wanted to mention that we've received word that some folks may have picked up an incorrect link to this session on some social media posts. If that's the case, and if you're joining us lately, please know that the entire session is being recorded and you'll be able to watch the whole thing in its entirety at a later time. All right, moving on to the next question. Chancellor, earlier on, you talked about those things for which we have local control at the university in terms of decision making. And I know that many of those are particularly around implementing the health and safety standards for our campus. Can you start by just talking a little bit more about that?
Well, we have been contingency planning essentially day and night now for 3 or 4 months and have a robust decision-making process in place. Let me just, again, bore you with some details about the sort of structure of decision-making we have designed. And these are weekly planning groups I'm going to talk about. The first one is our core COVID team. It's made up of leadership from environmental health and safety, facilities, student health, enrollment management, and is headed by Julia Jackson-Newsome, who I'll ask to say a few words in a minute. We have a COVID case management team, which is about 30 people from across the campus. We have a COVID operations team, which is about 60 people from across the campus. We have a COVID fall 2020 resumption team, which is about 20 people, and they're focused on the student experience and academics. And we have a student communications team of about 15 folks that meet bi-weekly. In addition, we are meeting weekly with Guilford County Public Health, with Cone Health, and because we recognize we are, believe it or not, a college town, we have meetings with not only the county public health officials, but representatives from North Carolina A&T, Guilford College, Greensboro College, GTCC, Bennett, and we're trying to make sure that our efforts are coordinated. So Julia, do you want to add some color to what I've said?
Sure, I'm happy to. Julia Jackson-Newsome, Associate Vice Chancellor for Strategy and Policy. These groups, several of these groups actually have been meeting since back in the spring. COVID came on our radar screen in January because of our study abroad students who were overseas and in some of the countries that were first affected. So we have this wide network of individuals with tremendous expertise working across campus, making sure that we're communicating with each other and really trying to talk through and understand best practices and how we can keep our community safe as we move forward into the fall. And we'll continue to do so as long as we need to. We're very much committed to doing whatever we can to keep folks safe.
Thanks, Julia.
All right, Chancellor, we also received many questions from parents and students about housing. They're asking a range of questions. They're asking what happens if we have to go remote, what will happen to those students who live on campus and have no place to go. They're asking about safety and cleaning guidelines in the residence halls, and also some questions about particular policies in the residence halls.
So before I turn it over to Tim Johnson, the Housing and Residence Life Director, and he'll get into some of those details, I want to say something about your first point and reiterate what I said before, which is we will make sure all students have a place to go. For those who do not have a home, we will have set aside spaces for them to be on campus in the event the students have to leave. We know many students may not have a place to go, may not have a safe place to go, and the like. And so we're very aware of that fact. With regards to housing, Tim, do you want to talk about the various measures we've taken to ensure safety in housing? And then Samir might want to weigh in on what we're doing on the physical plant side.
Sure. Thank you, Chancellor Gilliam. Good evening. My name is Tim Johnson. I am the Executive Director of Housing and Residence Life. Housing has been very busy getting the campus ready for student safe return. One of the first things we've done is we've restructured the move-in process into 2 phases. And the first stage is called stop, drop, and roll, where basically students are going to come back and just drop off their belongings into their rooms and then head on home, and then they'll come back in a couple of weeks to get ready for classes. So if you're a residential student, you've not already signed up for stop, drop, and roll, please log into Artemis through the housing website and sign up for a time to do stop, drop, and roll. In regards to cleaning, the housekeeping staff is treating all the common areas and will continue to treat all the common areas with electrostatic sprayers, and they've increased the cleaning in all the common areas. and they're wiping down all of the high touch areas multiple times every day. In the group bathrooms, we've installed disinfectant wipe dispensers so that students are able to wipe down an area before they use it. Returning students who are in suites and apartments need to remember to bring their own cleaning supplies because you are responsible for maintaining your own bathrooms and spaces in your own apartment and suite. So be sure to remember to bring all the stuff you need to do that. In addition, we've installed hand sanitizer dispensers at the entrances to every residence hall. And to assist with social distancing, we're limiting all guests, and all students will be expected to wear face coverings when not in their rooms. So really the only guest once move-in is over that'll be allowed in the residence halls will be students that already live on campus in the residences. We are right now going to be operating at about 80% of capacity, so we're reducing density across all the buildings, but especially in the traditional halls where students share that common bathroom area. For those students that are online for the fall and that have decided to not live on campus, but who may want to come and live on campus come this spring, housing applications for the spring will be available, and we'll certainly have space. And the application opens up sometime in October, so you can watch our website for that if that's something you're interested in. In regards to cases where a student might test positive or has had close exposure to someone that has tested positive, health services will work directly with them, and they will be asked to return home if they're able to for care and isolation and quarantine. We do have a limited number of quarantine and isolation spaces on campus for those residential students that are not able to travel or return home. There's plenty more details about all the different things that we're doing on the housing website, which is hrl.uncg.edu. Finally, we talk a lot about how we're all in this together, and it's really going to take all of us working together to be successful this year. I remind returning students that all the Res Life staff, including about 120 RAs, over 20 coordinators and grad staff, live in the residence halls with you. They're there every day, night and day, all the time. In addition, our housekeepers and our maintenance staff are there every day. They're in the hallways, they're in the bathrooms, they're all around the buildings, all around, working for you every day. Our administrative offices are all inside residence halls. My own office is literally 10 feet away from a student room in Ragsdale Mendenhall. So we are here with you. We're going to be here with you every day, and we're going to do everything we can to make it as safe as we possibly can for you to be successful and for us to have a good semester and a good year. So I'll thank you and sign off.
Can we get Samir to say something about what is called enhanced cleaning protocols?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chancellor. Good evening, Spartans. I'm Samir Kapileshwari. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Facilities. So we are focused on delivering a holistic strategy to address safety on campus, from procurement and distribution to community protective equipment to implementing enhanced cleaning protocol. So what enhanced cleaning protocol would include is it's basically following the CDC guidelines and using the EPA approved cleaners, which would include the following actions: disinfecting all the high-touch surface multiple times per day in all the public areas, including the doorknobs, elevator call buttons, door push plates, stairway railings, etc. In addition to that, we'll be also utilizing the electrostatic spray disinfectant periodically in common areas or upon request. There will be increased classroom cleaning and disinfection multiple times a day as allowed by the classroom schedules. We will be doing the same protocol in the classrooms, the labs, and also the restroom area. The disinfection in the restrooms will be occurring multiple times per day by adding disinfecting to normal bathroom checks, and also using the machine-aided cleaning systems in heavily used restrooms. In addition to that, we will be also stocking all the areas with cleaning wipes. Now, the housekeeping team will be predominantly responsible for doing that, but we'll be furnishing cleaning wipes for all the students, faculty, TAs, whoever wants to use those in their immediate areas. So that would be also available. So that's just some of the enhanced cleaning protocol that we have in place.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Samir. We're going to start responding to some questions that are coming in live, and we have a number of questions related to the classroom experience. Students are asking what classrooms are going to look like and whether their faculty will be wearing face coverings.
Andrew, or
Happy to do it. Hi, Andrew Hamilton. I'm Associate Vice Provost for Student Success and Dean of Undergraduate Studies. I had the pleasure and privilege of teaching a class last week, taught a lecture course in ecology. Students in mass face coverings. I was in a face covering. I'm proud to report that it worked really well. Even students, I could tell when they were laughing at my bad jokes. What we've done in most of the classrooms is either rearrange the furniture, or we have cordoned off sort of every seat or every other seat, so that it's clear to students how to be in the room and maintain distancing. I was really happy with the fact that I thought the face coverings didn't really inhibit anything with respect to the learning environment, and the students that were there agreed and said so. But it is the case that some students have difficulty hearing and read lips. So in those cases, what will happen, I think in most of those cases, is that the faculty member will wear a face shield instead of have their mouth covered, so that students have those extra visual cues. Thanks, Kathy.
and I'd say, Andrew, also they'll be wearing the face shields for disciplines that require them, like language, to be able to see the professor's mouth.
All right, thank you very much. The next question that I'll pose is, students are asking if they would be notified if someone in their class or their residence hall tests positive for COVID. And I will turn that over to you, Julia.
Okay, thank you. So our communication strategy around notification when individuals test positive is really based on the concept of close contact, because we know that close contact is how the virus is spread. And we define close contact as having three different components, things that we look at. One is how long has an individual been exposed to someone who tested positive? What kind of distance was there between that person and the person who tested positive? So that's where the 6-foot rule comes into play. In terms of time, 15 minutes and longer is considered part of the criteria to be in close contact. And whether or not the individuals were wearing face coverings. And so that's the importance of wearing face coverings. The purpose of the contact tracing process, which you may well have heard about, that we do in collaboration with our public health folks in Guilford County, is to identify those folks who have had close contact to those who test positive. And then we follow up with those individuals because they may need to be tested and we may need to ask them to go into quarantine. In addition to that, we will be alerting campus when there are positive cases through a website that we will update on a periodic basis. And the point of that is really different. The point of that process is just to be transparent and to let folks know where we are as a campus in terms of how many people have tested positive. One thing I think is important to remember is that this is not something that you get simply by walking by someone in a hallway or sharing walking by someone in a stairwell. And so we really are focusing our communication strategy on identifying those who might have been exposed and need to have some follow-up to make sure that they stay healthy.
And I'd add, Julia, to that we're encouraging faculty to assign seating. So if a person does test positive, it will make it easier to identify who they've been in proximity to. And so much of these practices are going to rely on our students also being responsible in this process.
Absolutely.
If I may ask then too, because I see some questions about attendance policy. And so I think students are concerned that if they get sick, how will the attendance policy be adjusted or accommodate that?
Well, Kathy, we don't have a university-wide attendance policy or a university-wide grading policy, but we have repeatedly asked faculty to be flexible and forgiving. So students, I think you can expect that. I hope you can expect that. And if you run into difficulties getting to class on time, or you run into difficulties with getting assignments in on time, and you find that you are not being heard, feel free to send me an email, ugdean@uncg.edu, and I'll see if I can help you out.
Okay, the next question I would like someone to answer is related to the classroom experience as well. And particularly, students are asking if they have perhaps a face-to-face class on campus and then an online class, but maybe not enough time to travel back home. Will there be a place where they will be able to participate in their online class on the campus someplace?
Kathy, go ahead, Jim, sorry.
Yeah, well, let me just say a few words first, and I'll hand it to Andrew. I'm Jim Coleman. I'm the Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor. And we do want to remind, first of all, let me say, having come from the University of Arkansas, where I co-led the planning, I have been really impressed here with everything we have done in our planning and for our academic work. And to remember that we are open and that spaces will be open for students. We will be trying to social distance in those spaces, but there will certainly be places for you to be able to work on your online classes on campus. And I know that Andrew's office is putting together some more details on that. So let me kick it to Andrew for some more details on the spaces and how that will work.
Thanks, Jim. We're actively working on this. We thought of this, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and I called Julia and said, oh, we have to plan for this. So I was talking to the registrar just this afternoon, actually, about some new strategy pieces for this. What I think is going to happen is that we will publish a schedule of places to the app as well as to other media, where students can figure out where they can be if they want to do an online class that is back-to-back with an in-person class or a hybrid class. So we thought about it. We're going to have spaces for you, and you're going to be able to find out where those spaces are well ahead of class start.
And Andrew, you mentioned the Uncg app, and I know most of our returning students are aware of it, but I just want to encourage people, if they haven't downloaded it, to download it. And if they have downloaded it, to look at it. It contains a lot of information. It's the fastest and easiest way for our students to stay connected and where they can get resources when they need them. It's pretty robust app, and we'll post a lot of things that would be easily found on the app. And Andrew is interesting because he is in our student learning commons. It looks like in the foyer of 4A, and it's a beautiful building, and a lot of things that support students happen in that building.
I've learned not to stand here at 6:40 in the afternoon, however, because of the light.
Yeah, you might need your shades.
All right, the next question comes from some of our students who are involved in student organizations, and they're asking how activity related to those organizations will work this year. I'll address that briefly and then pose the next question. So we certainly want to encourage students to remain involved with their student organization, and for students who are new coming into the university to also have the chance to connect to those organizations. We understand the importance of them. But we also know that in these times, we have to have some expectations about how students meet and interact and the types of activities on the campus. And so we're in the process now of finalizing some guidelines for our student groups and events and our own staff and planning events for students. We know that initially it's going to be important that a lot of the meetings and events happen virtually so that we can get started on the right foot and ensure the safety of everybody involved. However, as situations evolve and we're able to allow organizations to do more, we have some guidelines in place that we would be sharing with all student clubs during a early fall semester training for both members and advisors. So you should definitely look for more information about that coming soon. Our biggest priority, obviously, is finding ways for you to be engaged with one another, but in a very safe way. All right. Important topic up next is campus dining. And so I'm going to ask Scott Millman to address this, but students are asking, what is it going to be like eating in the dining hall? Also great concern for the lines at Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and wanting to make sure they're going to still get their most favorite foods when they're on campus.
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. Good evening, Spartans. My name is Scott Millman. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Campus Enterprises. And I just wanted to let you know that the dining team has been working hard to come up with solutions that will allow our students to eat well on campus. Our dining plan was developed using the best guidance from the CDC, and all of our plans were approved by the Guilford County Health Department, which certifies all food operations in the county. And so some of the changes and new approaches that we've done to serve students, well, first of all, Fountain View Dining will be available to individuals with meal plan swipes only. And when you go there, the food will be served to guests. There'll be no self-serving, so even if you want salad bar items, they'll be served for you. We're bringing back trays that will allow students, when they go to a servery location, whether it be the home style or pasta, you'll be able to get all the items that you need to complete your meal there. So you won't have to go around to a lot of different places to get food. One of the reasons that we're limiting Fountain View to meal plan swipes only is we're limited to seating capacity up there. And so right now that capacity is being capped at 50%. But in order to help people who want to get to-go meals or so forth, we've opened up we're opening up a new location downstairs called Out of Here. You'll be able to get a to-go meal, and it'll be similar to some of the things that they're serving upstairs. Now, some of our retail locations like Chick-fil-A, in order to make sure that we're able to get everybody through and allow people to properly social distance in line, we won't have seating in there. So Chick-fil-A will be to-go only. So we're able to get people through. But we'll have kiosks that will allow people to do ordering so they don't have to wait in line, and they can get their food when it's ready. And we're working on mobile ordering to allow the same thing, so you'll be able to use that in many of the retail locations. And one of the things that we're asking for is people to not use cash, to either use a meal plan or a Spartan Cash or a credit card, and that will help with points of contact to help reduce the possible transmission of a virus. And if you want to know more about the things that dining is doing to enhance the safety and the enhanced cleaning, I invite you to read all about it in the Return to Campus guide that you all received.
Thank you very much, Scott. We appreciate that. Dr. Mcmillian, we have students on social media who are asking to hear from you specifically around student testing and contact tracing.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Tracy Mcmillian. I'm Medical Director at Student Health Services, and Student Health Services has been open the entire duration of this pandemic serving students. We've expanded our services to include telemental health as well as telehealth services for some of our concerns that students may have. One change that we are asking this year is that students call or schedule appointments before coming over to the health center so that we can better prepare for folks who are going to be presenting to the office. We have been and continue to have the capacity to perform testing for COVID-19 or for the virus that causes COVID-19. The testing that we're doing is testing for the virus itself, looking for active infection. We're not doing antibody testing. It's not been shown to be reliable. So that requires an appointment and consultation with one of our providers to determine whether or not it's appropriate to do testing given your circumstance. So again, that's calling and scheduling an appointment through our appointment line. And we are continuing to work with the health department to work on our contact tracing protocols and making sure that we isolate and place the appropriate folks into quarantine when needed. So we're just continuing to plug away at it. So,
Dr. Mcmillian, can you talk a little bit about what I've called, or some have called, the deputizing of contact tracers here on campus to enhance that capacity, given some of the limitations of that county health system?
I can talk about it a little bit. That's still a work in progress. There are some scenarios where universities are working with their local health departments, and we are trying to also work with our local health department to find out, to establish an agreement as to what each group is actually responsible for. I do not know if it will get to the point of us being deputized as officers, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term, to do certain aspects of the contact tracing. There are some things that are best left for the public health individuals to implement and execute, but we're certainly trying to do what we can to expedite contact tracing on the campus, because that's a very important part of limiting the spread of this virus. The sooner we can identify folks that are that have tested positive and are potentially infectious and isolate or quarantine them, the better chance we have at containing any potential infections that could turn into a cluster or a larger problem.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Tim Johnson to take the next question. Students are asking about the guest policy in the residence halls during this time, and in particular, if they're an off-campus student, are they allowed to come into the residence halls to visit friends?
So actually, we are limiting guests in the residence halls to only students that already live in the residence hall. So if you're an off-campus resident, you're not able to visit inside the residence halls. So I would encourage you guys to make plans to meet outside, take a walk in the park, take a nice walk around campus. We're also, as a campus, working on different ways to increase some of the public seating and some of the gathering potential for people in smaller groups to be able to kind of find a spot somewhere around on campus. It's in essence safer to be outside when you're in a small group or hanging out with friends. And so I would encourage folks to do that as much as possible.
Thank you, Tim. We also are getting some questions about our face covering policy. So if one of my colleagues wants to take that, and then also, related to where they have to wear them. And then after that, Dr. Carter, if you talk a little bit about enforcement and kind of the culture of care.
Well, I'll just say something. We're requiring students to wear face coverings when they are in class. And we will then, Tim Sloan can talk about the availability of face coverings. When students don't have them, we'll have several places where they'll be able to get them. So they're required to wear them in class. With some faculty will have extra face coverings with them. We expect them to wear them in public spaces. As you've heard, we expect them to wear them any place in the residence halls that are outside of their room. We're trying to create a community norm that the best way that we know right now, and I think Dr. Mcmillian, it's safe for me to say, tell me if I'm wrong, that the best way to spread transmission, to ease the transmission, is face coverings and social distancing. And certainly if you've seen the infrared experiments on face coverings, it's pretty clear they're extremely important to help reduce the spread of transmission. Tim Sloan, do you want to say a quick word about where we'll have face coverings available for the students?
Sure. Good evening. I'm Tim Sloan. I'm the Director of Environmental Health and Safety here at UNCG. And we're going to have face coverings available to you basically everywhere when you arrive on campus. So we'll have kiosks out, tents out on the EUC lawn on various areas on campus where you can pick up an initial supply. They'll meet you at your residence halls. We're working on plans to put them in academic buildings. So if you show up to a class and you've forgotten your face covering, you'll easily be able to get one close to class and you won't have to run back to a residence hall or your car. We are going to ask folks to wear them most places on campus, right? And outside of your car in your own personal room, if you're in a public common area on campus, we're going to be asking you to wear those during that period of time. So face coverings will be available. We also encourage folks to bring their face coverings from home as well. We're not going to discourage any kind, but we're going to supplement those and have them available a variety of spaces on campus.
And students who are habitual offenders of the face covering policy, sounds a little harsh, Dr. Carter's office will be educating students, and in the extreme cases, there will be consequences regarding the student code of conduct. Dr. Carter, you want to say a couple words about this?
Absolutely. So again, just want to echo what a lot of my colleagues have talked about on this call, and that is related to, we're all in this together. And certainly as a campus, we take this situation very seriously, and therefore as we are asking our faculty as well as staff to wear masks, we are expecting our students to do the same. And so this is what it's going to look like in situations where students may choose to or decide not to wear a mask. For a first initial violation, whether it's in the classroom or across the campus, we want to have an educational conversation. And that kind of goes and supports our philosophy of creating that culture of care. It's all about, not getting folks in trouble, but having an educational conversation, why it's important. And you've heard a lot about why it's important. But then on the second time, if there's a violation, the student will be referred to the Office of Student Rights and Responsibility, and they will have a more firm, stern conversation about the face mask, and then it will be documented. And then certainly on the third level of a violation, I can assure you that there will be some conduct case filed against the student, and then appropriate action taken. I say all that to say, again, going back to this culture of care, we hope we don't reach that second or third level, and we shouldn't reach that second or third level if we're all in this together. But know that, we're going to have that educational conversation, and we hope that, we all can support each other.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. I'd also like to add that, we share concern for what students are doing off the campus as well. Because anything that students are, the safety that you all as students are showing and the precautions that you're taking when you're in the local community or off the campus is certainly will impact what happens on campus, and it will impact your fellow students, your faculty, and your staff. And so we hope that students reflect on this as they think about the different types of socialization that will need to happen, not just on the campus in the residence halls, but also off the campus. We've got to take care of each other. I would remind you as well that the city of Greensboro and the state of North Carolina have current policies related to wearing face coverings as well. And so we would expect that our students are adhering to those standards both on and off the campus in order to protect one another. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to Dr. Mcmillian?
I did want to add, Chancellor, you mentioned about the facial coverings and the social distancing, and those are both extremely important. The facial covering obviously can potentially contain droplets that could be coming from someone's mouth or nose as they're speaking or talking or breathing. And then the distance, obviously, some of those droplets, depending on the size of them, travel further. The further away you are, the better chance you have of not being exposed to those droplets. But there are other things also that are part of this collaborative effort to combat this virus, including frequent and proper hand hygiene, staying home when you're sick. That's a big one. A lot of times we as individuals, if we don't feel well, we just kind of try to tough it out. This is not really the time to do that because you're potentially putting other individuals in the community at risk. So those are two things that I wanted to make sure that didn't get lost in the discussion, that it's not just one of these things that's going to help us have a successful semester, have our best shot at a successful semester. It's the combination of all these things and making sure that we're taking care of one another.
Thank you, Dr. Mcmillian. I think you struck an important balance between taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other. So the final question that I'll pose to Scott Millman is related to transportation. Students are asking how some of the transportation on campus will be operated during this time.
Sure. Thank you. Well, parking operations and campus access management has instituted lots of changes to the operations, and there are procedures to enhance rider safety and operator safety on the buses. So if you'll be taking one of the Spartan Chariots, here's how it'll work. And so before you even get on, there's going to be enhanced cleaning of the vehicles each day using the sprayers that you've heard about before. And each of the buses will be outfitted with hand sanitizer. So as you board a bus, you can use the hand sanitizer on there. Now, all of the occupants on the buses will have to wear face coverings. The buses will have reduced capacity. It'll be 50% to allow appropriate physical distancing. There'll be decals to let you know where an appropriate place to sit or stand is on the bus. And we're currently reviewing routes to look for possible changes to allow for more efficient and effective travel times. And I can tell you that the Heat and Greensboro Transit Agency buses will take similar enhanced cleaning and safety precautions for the ridership. And therefore, students are encouraged to give themselves additional time due to possible delays because of the reduced capacity when they're riding either campus or city transit.
Thank you, Scott. Chancellor, I think we have run out of time, so I will turn it over to you for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Akins. I want to thank Ali from SGA and the student participation in this. We value student input. We are listening to your concerns. We share many of them. So I want to thank Ali for being here. I also want to thank the team here on the call. As you can see, we have a very strong and dedicated group of professionals who are dedicated to making sure we can provide the safest possible campus experience for the students. We've been working extremely hard for really months now to try to prepare the campus for students returning. I want to also make it clear that this is not an open versus closed situation. This campus is open, it's been open. We have ongoing research. I know the 25th, I guess, we'll have the stop, drop, and roll activities going on. And I know it's inconvenient. And I know a lot of these things are inconvenient. But folks, if we're going to get through this, these are the things we have to do. We have to engage in a different kind of behavior. This is not a normal time. It's an abnormal time. And it requires us to change what we do. I know, look, I have a college-age son. I've been at this for a long, long time. And I understand what happens on college campuses with students. And I saw on the chat, students are saying, well, if you're not going to let us visit our friends, we're going to go to apartments and we're all going to hang out. You know, I understand that. And I understand you want to be with your friends. But I can't encourage you enough to do so responsibly. Because for us to get through this, we're all going to have to take some responsibility. We're all going to have this sense of shared fate. And I also know something else about the student age group. And all of the people you see on the screen were students once. And we all, and many of us have kids who are that age. And I know what it's like to feel bulletproof at 20 or 21. You are not bulletproof. The virus doesn't care about age. It doesn't care about the color of your skin or how tall you are or where you're from or what religion you practice. And I think that Dr. Mcmillian can attest to the fact that this is a very, very serious virus. and we have to do the best that we can to mitigate it. So if it means for a semester we have to change our behaviors, then we have to change our behaviors. Now, having said that, I understand that this is unsettling. I understand that some of you prefer face-to-face learning, some of you prefer remote learning, and in this certain time, we just have to try to do what's best for the whole campus community. I know it's unsettling, I know it's scary, but we're all going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm scared. I worry. I'm the, I guess what would the term be, titular leader of this campus, and all of you are my responsibility. And I don't want folks to get sick, and I don't want there to be an outbreak, and God forbid that we have any worse outcomes. So it's going to require all of us hanging together, hanging on to the rope, not letting go, because if we don't, it's going to get worse. And all the things you want to do will be delayed, from your education to your study abroad experiences, to the ability to hang out with your friends and join a fraternity or sorority or do whatever it is you want to do. It's all going to be delayed more and more if you engage in riskier and riskier behavior. All of us on campus are doing everything we can to make you safe when you're here. We want you to still be able to get a good education, an excellent education, and make progress to your degree. The goal, by the way, to state it again, is for you to graduate. That's our goal. That's why we're here. And so we're trying to do everything we can to help you do that. But it's also our responsibility to make sure we do it safely, as safe as we can. And we're trying everything that we can think of and more to make the campus safe. But I do want you to know, I feel your discomfort. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable every day. I get it. Believe me. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. But it's a fluid situation. Things change from week to week. In fact, when we started this planning, and when the UNC system started this planning, I think we thought that we would have so-called flattened the curve. And in many counties around the state, we know that there is just the opposite. There's a surge. And you have to protect not only your classmates and your professors and the staff, but your families. Many of you will be going back home. I saw there was a question, can we leave campus to go home on the weekend? Sure you can. But do you want to get your grandpa or grandma sick? Want to get your aunt and uncle sick? Do you want to get your parents sick? So we just have to be a little bit more responsible here. It's an extraordinary time, and it calls for extraordinary measures. All that being said, I'm still fired up about the school year. I get this way every year. I get giddy. It's been a little lonely without the students on the campus. And you'll see me on the campus. I'll be riding around. Some have suggested I need a Pope mobile for social distancing, but I don't think I'll quite make the golf cart the G-Whip, but I will be there on campus, and I want to see all of you. And I want to see us continue to be on campus, and I want to see us be safe. So, Dr. Akins, that's my admonition and guidance and concern for the campus.
Thank you for those remarks, Chancellor. And I am pretty sure we all feel the same way. We're excited to have students back, excited to get the semester started. So thank you for joining us, and we do look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good night.